4963. The ILS critical area markings denote A. Where you are clear of the runway. B. Where you must be to start your ILS procedure. C. Where you are clear of the ILS critical area. The correct answer is C. The ILS critical area markings are typically yellow dashed lines with diagonal hash marks extending from the runway holding position to a designated distance. These markings indicate the boundaries of the ILS critical area, which is a protected zone around the localizer and glide slope antennas. Aircraft and vehicles are required to remain clear of this area unless authorized by ATC. The markings help pilots and ground personnel identify where they are clear of the ILS critical area to ensure the safety and integrity of the ILS signal. 4430. What altitude may a pilot on an IF or flight plan select upon receiving AVFR on top clearance? A. Any altitude at least 1,000 feet above the meteorological condition. B. Any appropriate VF or altitude at or above the MEA and VF or weather conditions. C. Any VF or altitude appropriate for the direction of flight at least 500 feet above the meteorological condition. The correct answer is B. When a pilot receives AVFR on top clearance while on an IF or flight plan, they are allowed to choose any appropriate VF or altitude at or above the minimum en route altitude, MEA, for their specific route and in VF or weather conditions. This means that the pilot can select an altitude that provides adequate terrain and obstacle clearance while remaining within visual meteorological conditions. The MEA serves as a minimum altitude for IF or operations, and when operating VFR on top, the pilot has the flexibility to choose an altitude that meets VFR requirements while maintaining safe separation from other aircraft and obstacles. 4431. When must a pilot fly at a cardinal altitude plus 500 feet on an IF or flight plan? A. When flying above 18,000 feet in VF or conditions. B. When flying in VF or conditions above clouds. C. When assigned AVFR on top clearance. The correct answer is C. When a pilot is assigned AVFR on top clearance, it means they are authorized to fly at VF or altitudes of their choosing while operating on an IF or flight plan. In this case, the pilot is required to maintain a cardinal altitude, e.g., 3,500 feet, for 1,500 feet, etc., plus 500 feet. This ensures vertical separation from other aircraft and helps maintain safety in the airspace. It is important to comply with the assigned altitude and any instructions given by air traffic control when flying on AVFR on top clearance. 4433. You have filed an IF or flight plan with AVFR on top clearance in line of an assigned altitude. If you receive this clearance and fly a course of 180, at what altitude should you fly? Assume VF or conditions. A. Any IF or altitude which will enable you to remain in VF or conditions. B. An odd 1,000-foot MSL altitude plus 500 feet. C. An even 1,000-foot MSL altitude plus 500 feet. The correct answer is C. When a pilot is assigned AVFR on top clearance, it means they are authorized to operate in VF or conditions above a specified minimum IF or altitude. The pilot is responsible for selecting an appropriate altitude for their direction of flight that provides adequate separation from other aircraft and terrain. There is no specific requirement to maintain a cardinal altitude plus 500 feet in this situation. 4447. Where are VFR on top operations prohibited? A. In Class A airspace. B. During off-airways direct flights. C. When flying through Class B airspace. The correct answer is A. VFR on top operations are prohibited in Class A airspace. Class A airspace starts at an altitude of 18,000 feet MSL, mean sea level, and extends up to and including flight level 600, FL 600. VFR on-top operations are not allowed in this airspace as it is exclusively for IFR, Instrument Flight Rules, operations. VFR on top refers to operating in VFR, Visual Flight Rules, conditions while being on top of an overcast or obscuring layer, typically in controlled airspace below Class A. However, it is important to note that VFR on top operations may be permitted in other classes of airspace, such as Class B, as long as they comply with the specific requirements and procedures established by air traffic control.